For fork length, industry standard is 48 inches long. Half of 48 is 24. This is called your load center. Alright, so if this right here is called the face of your forks. Alright, and this is called the tip of your forks. Alright, and this is called your load center. So that means half of your load, whatever the halfway mark of your load, is called the load center. You always want to have your load as close to 24 inches as possible. Every inch you move away from your load center, it derates the capacity of your forklift. If you have a 5,000 pound forklift and a 4,500 pound load, can your forklift pick this box up safely? Yes. You have a 5,000 pound forklift, 4,500 pound load, your load center is at 24 inches, your standard fork size 48, it's pretty much sitting just right on your forks. You can lift that up, not a problem. You have a 5,000 pound forklift right here, 5,000 pound forklift, 4,500 pound load. Okay, your forks are still 48 inches long, 24 inch load center. Can you pick that up safely? This box, if it's evenly distributed, all the weight's evenly distributed throughout this box, and you have a 5-inch gap here, can you pick that up safely? No, you cannot pick that up safely. Whenever you have a gap between the face of your forks and the actual load here, whenever you have a gap, your load center moves out. So when you're not able to pick up your load correctly and have the load all the way on the face of the forks, when you're not able to do that and you leave a 5-inch gap here, it moves your load center out. Whenever you move your load center out, it decreases your capacity. You have a 5,000 pound forklift, 24-inch load center, 48-inch long forks. You picked up the load with a 5-inch gap. Like I said before, if you have a 5-inch gap here, your new load center moves out 5 inches. So every inch you move out from a 24-inch load center, it derates your capacity 100 pounds. So if you look over here at this example, we have a 5,000 pound forklift. See, 5,000 pound forklift. We have minus 500 pounds because of your gap here. Remember, if you have a 5-inch gap here, your load center moves out 5 inches, so we got to derate it 500 pounds, meaning a new rated capacity at 4,500 pounds. If you have a size shift attached to the front of your forklift, you also have to derate the capacity of your forklift. So if your size shift is, let's just say 500 pounds for the sake of even numbers, your new rated capacity is now 4,000. If you have a size shift on your forklift, or if you have forks on your forklift, if you have something on that mast or on your forks, it derates the capacity of the forklift. So therefore, if your new rated capacity is 4,500, you're always going to have to derate it for forks or your size shift or whatever attachments you have on it, making this heavy and unsafe to lift. Okay, so in this example, we have a 5K forklift. We're picking up plywood, sheetrock, 2x4s, something that's relatively long here. And you had no other option to get to this load except for like this. Okay, so my question to you is you have a 5K forklift, 4,500 pound bundle here. Can you pick that up safely? So your load center, your original load center is here. Because you had to pick this up from this angle, your new load center is here. Again, you have a 48-inch long forks, 24-inch load center. Your new load center has moved out because of the length of the load. Your load center is no longer 24, it's now 48. So your new load center is here. That's a 24-inch jump. Remember, every inch you move your load center out, it derates the capacity of your forklift. So if you're 24 inches out, it's going to be a 2,400 pound decrease to your 5K. So let me ask you this. Now that we understand that this is way too heavy, how do we lift this up correctly? Give me some examples on how, or think of some examples on how you can load this correctly. Some people say, hey, let's add fork extensions to the forklift or to the forks. That just adding fork extensions doesn't do anything for your load center. In other words, just because I add fork extensions here at the end, does it take my new load center and jump it back to 24? Because remember, we have to get our load center back to 24. Just adding fork extensions doesn't do anything but add to the weight of the load. So if these fork extensions are 200 pounds, my new weight here is not going to be 45 anymore. You're going to add 200 more, so that's 5, 6, 7, that's 4,700 pounds. Just by adding fork extensions to your forklift, it does nothing but add to the weight. Okay, it does secure the load from bending. Okay, it'll help the load go from bending to straight, but it does not jump back to 24-inch load center, and it does not help out your capacity back here. Now, some people will say, "Hey, let's strap it down." Okay, strapping the forklift down doesn't jump your new load center back to your old. You see what I'm saying? If you mess with your load center, if your load center goes out, if it goes that way, you're derating the capacity of your forklift. The only way you can lift this load up secure and safe is if you get a bigger forklift.
Forklifts are designed to keep everything in proper balance, but many factors affect this balance. The capacity of the machine at a specified load center, the type and weight of the forks or attachment, the weight of the load and its center of gravity, the position of the load on the forks or attachment. The weight of the load changes as its location forward of the fulcrum changes. Its location is dependent upon where the load is placed on the forks or other support means, the tilt angle of the mast, and the height of the carriage and load. You, the operator, must control these variables and ensure that the total weight forward of the fulcrum, multiplied by the location of the combined center of gravity of the load, mast, carriage, and forks or attachment, plus other dynamic forces of operation, never exceed the counterbalance of the lift truck. These dynamic forces may include acceleration or braking and the rate of acceleration or braking, condition of the ground surface, the grade angle, the tilt of the mast, height of the load, and weather conditions. You must consider all of these factors before operating the machine. Each of these factors can affect safe operation of the machine. The balance for proper operation is safe if all different parts of the machine are properly maintained and the machine is safely operated by you, the operator. The rated capacity of any machine is set for a special combination of the machine, the mast, and the attachment. If either the attachment or mast is changed, the capacity may change. You must know what the actual changes are and what the actual capacity is. Your knowledge and understanding, as well as your systematic approach to proper and safe operation of the lift truck, are essential for your safety and that of those in your working environment. You must know the machine's size, know the machine's operating capacity, know how to operate the machine, know what safety features are available, know the safe operating procedures at your work site. You must check the machine daily for proper operation, use every safety feature, follow safe operating procedures, and be alert.
Forklifts are designed to carry their load correctly. Keep the load low to the ground. You don't want to drive with your forks up in the air. You want to keep them 6 to 10 inches above ground. So when you have a load, you want to keep them 6 to 10 inches. Now, if you're working with a rough terrain or a grade all and the terrain is bumpy, then you can go higher. But typically, OSHA, LNI, in your state wants to look at forks 6 to 10 inches above the ground. Beware of shifting loads. Now let's go back to the fulcrum here. The fulcrum lets you know where your weight is distributed at on your forklift. So if you have a 5,000 pound forklift, where's all your weight at if you don't have a load? It's back here on your counterweights, back here on the back of your lift. Now let's say you have a 5,000 pound forklift and you pick up a 5,000 pound load. Where's all your weight at now? It's on your drive axle, right down here, okay? Now let's look at the stability triangle. Take a moment here and read this, and we'll discuss it here on the next slide. Your stability triangle is there to let you know where you're stable. In other words, it's there to give you a visual on where your hot spots are at and where you're more stable and less stable. Okay, so if we look at fulcrum, if we don't have a load, where's our weight at? Fulcrum tells us it's in the back. Okay, so if we don't have a load, our weight's in the back, right? This center of gravity is going to be shifted closer here to the point. These are our hot spots. See that? See how close this is to the triangle? This is more close than it being here. If you have your center of gravity here, your hot spots, you're further away from the side and tipping over. So if this is all the way back here, and we decide to go fly around a corner, skid out, and accidentally hit something, maybe a bolt sticking up out of the ground or hit a pothole or something, that center of gravity can shift right on outside that triangle and this forklift's tipping over. Let's take this in consideration. If we have a 5,000 pound forklift and a 5,000 pound load, where's our weight at now? Right here, because this is going to level out here. Because what fulcrum does is let us know whether the weight is distributed. So if I have a 5,000 pound forklift and a 5,000 pound load, the weight is going to be right here. If I have a 5,000 pound forklift and a 5,000 pound load, the weight is going to be right on your drive axle, your fulcrum point here. Okay, so if I have a 5,000 pound forklift and a 6,000 pound load, what's going to happen to the center of gravity? It's going to shift out outside the stability triangle. It's going to tip over flat on the forks. It's going to, not on the forks, it's going to tip over right in the front. Okay, be aware of your stability triangle. Understand that the gravity, or not the gravity, the incline in the hills affect the stability triangle. Your load will affect the stability triangle. And just understand that you don't want to be flying around corners when you don't have a load, or even if you do have a load, you want to drive safe. You want to keep your forks 6 to 10 inches above ground. You want to make sure you're safe when you're operating the lift.
The operating principles of most lift trucks are similar to that of a seesaw or teeter-totter. Each has a center balance point or fulcrum point on which the objects pivot. As this is the fulcrum point of the seesaw, the fulcrum point of a lift truck is at the front wheels or front axles. There is a counterweight at the rear of each lift truck that offsets the rated load on the forks or front end of that lift truck. The size and weight of this counterweight determine the maximum rated load capacity that a lift truck can safely handle. The depth of a load is a critical factor that affects the capacity of a lift truck. The farther the load weight is extended away from the balance point of a lift truck, the less weight your lift truck can safely lift. Also, the capacity decreases as the load is lifted higher, as it moves away from the balance point at the front axle. Since the load depth is critical for manufacturers to determine load capacity, they rate their lift truck's load center or center of the load. The load center is the halfway distance from the face of the forks toward the tips of the forks. For example, the 24-inch load center dimension is the horizontal halfway point of a 48-inch deep load. Since most pallets are 48 inches deep, a 24-inch load center has become the industry standard for all lift truck manufacturers to determine the maximum load capacity. This maximum load capacity is stated on the nameplate. The load center dimension on the nameplate is relative to the manufacturer's rated capacity, also found on the nameplate. Most lift trucks that have a capacity up to 30,000 pounds are rated at a 24-inch load center, as the nameplate states. If the load center of a large load is greater than the 24-inch rated load center, for example, a 60-inch deep load having a 30-inch load center, the capacity of the forklift decreases. In this case, the same load must be greatly reduced to prevent a tip-over accident. Tall lift heights, front-end attachments, and extended load centers drastically reduce the weight capacity that a lift truck can safely handle. Know the rated load capacity and load center dimensions on the nameplate of your lift truck and do not exceed the rated capacity under any circumstance. Lift trucks operate on a 3-point suspension system called the stability triangle. Both the lift truck and the load have a center of gravity. When the lift truck picks up a load, the center of gravity of the truck and the load together becomes a combined center of gravity. This combined center of gravity should always remain inside the stability triangle. If the combined center of gravity moves outside the stability triangle, the operator's odds for tipping the lift truck over drastically increase. It is important to tilt the mast or forks back toward the lift truck to stabilize the load and to position the combined center of gravity farther back into the stability triangle. Never lift or lower your forks or load while traveling in forward or reverse, because this will only increase the possibility that the combined center of gravity will move outside the stability triangle and increase the chance of tipping the lift truck over. Sudden changes in speed, direction, or sharp turns also can cause the combined center of gravity to move outside the stability triangle. A mandatory overhead guard protects the operator against falling objects. Note that an overhead guard offers protection from the impact of small packages, boxes, bag material, and other objects representative of the job application, but not the impact of a falling capacity load. Use the load backrest extension whenever necessary to reduce the possibility of the load or part of the load from falling backwards. Lift truck manufacturers are equipping sit-down rider forklifts with operator restraint systems. This includes seats, seat belts, and warning decals. These decals advise you to always use the operator restraint system and wear your seat belt. In the case of a tip-over accident, don't jump, as the lift truck would likely fall on top of you. Hold on tight to the steering wheel. Brace your feet and keep them within the operator's compartment, and lean away from the direction of the fall. Spending the brief time it takes to put on your seatbelt and review the operator restraint system's decal can prevent severe injury or death in the event of a tip-over accident.
Watch as this, I want you to watch as this driver goes down here. Look at that individual to the right. You got to make sure he doesn't come by you. You got to honk that horn and make sure he's aware and sees you. Now, as you turn, watch how the forklift turns. See how the steering axle is back here. Here's an OSHA, looking at things. OSHA guy looking at things here. See how it turns out and swings out? Something to be aware of. Watch him lean over, drive in, be careful. He's going to lift and then tilt back. Make sure you look behind you, honk the horn. Be careful now. As you drive backwards, you never know who's behind you. You never know who's walking past all these don't enter signs. You have to be aware of your surroundings. This individual never looked to that left side. She was walking down. Thank goodness she didn't walk down there when he was backing up just now, but you never know. You got to make sure, you got to be aware of your surroundings in a working environment. This is just a video of how to simply lift and back up and reverse. This one is kind of a shaky video of how to put down a pallet, set it down, and then back out. You don't want to slam the pallet down. You want to set it down gently when you put product down. This operator is keeping his forks close to the ground while negotiating rough terrain. You want your forks 6 to 10 inches above ground. That's an OSHA standard. That's a rule. Keep your forks 6 to 10 inches. As in that video, that individual approaches the load squarely, sets the forks beneath the pallet, lifts, then tilts. Okay, so watch. As he pulls in, he's leaning to one side, he pulls in, he lifts, tilts, looks back. There you go. Now he looks left and right, lowers the load down 6 to 10 inches. Okay, looks back. Keeps that hand inside the cab there. You need to have that hand inside the cab. And look how low that is. That's 6 to 10 inches. You need to honk that horn when you go around corners. Did you see those guys there? He didn't even see him when he backed up. You need to be aware of your surroundings. 6 to 10 inches. Be aware. You never know who's going to walk out. With the forks beneath the pallet, he raises a load. Next, he tilts the mass back. You never want to tilt, then lift. It's always lift, then tilt. He backs away from the trucks. Next, he lowers the load and continues on his way. So let's watch this. Lifts, tilts, backs up, looks both ways, lowers the load down. That's great. That's great. Keeps his hands inside the engine compartment, gets 6 to 10 inches up, looks back. That's perfect.
Lift trucks are classified by their fuel or energy source. There are 4 primary classification sources. They are G for gas, LP for liquefied petroleum, D for diesel, and E for electric. These 4 primary fuel or energy sources include a total of 11 overall designations, which are specified by nationally recognized testing laboratories. Every lift truck requires a label or some other identifying mark indicating designation approval. Use only approved lift trucks in hazardous locations. For specific areas of use within locations that contain hazardous concentrations, refer to Table N1 of the OSHA Federal Regulations. Charge and install batteries only in areas designated for that purpose. Proper facilities are required for flushing and neutralizing electrolyte contact, for fire protection, for protecting battery chargers from damage by trucks, and for adequate ventilation to disperse harmful fumes from gassing batteries. Wear eye protection, gloves, and proper clothing when checking and handling batteries. Have an eye wash station available to flush and neutralize battery acid that may come in eye contact. Don't smoke and take precautions to prevent open flames, sparks, or electric arcs in battery charging areas. Only trained and authorized personnel may inspect, charge, maintain, and change industrial truck batteries according to the truck and battery manufacturer's guidelines. Position the lift truck and set the parking brake before attempting to change or charge batteries. Never plug the charger into the truck connector. During charging, keep the vent caps in place to avoid electrolyte spray. Open the battery compartment top and side covers on an electric lift truck to dissipate heat. Use adequate material handling equipment for handling or charging batteries. Disconnect the battery prior to electrical system repair. Keep tools and other metal objects away from the top of uncovered batteries. Follow the manufacturer's procedures when replacing contacts in a battery connector. The weight of the battery must comply with the weight range specified on the nameplate of the lift truck. Properly secure reinstalled batteries. The storage and handling of liquid fuels such as gas, liquefied petroleum, and diesel shall be in accordance with NFPA flammable and combustible liquid codes. If you are unsure about proper storage, check with your local fire authority for assistance. Turn the engine off before filling the fuel tank. Handle LP gas cylinders carefully. Dents or scrapes may weaken the tank, making it potentially hazardous. Properly position and secure LP tanks on the truck before connecting the fuel line. Open the tank valve slowly and check for leaks in the fuel lines. Never operate a lift truck with a leak in the fuel system. Avoid spilling fuel. If there is spillage of oil or fuel, carefully wash it away and replace the fuel tank cap before restarting the engine. Use non-combustible agents for cleaning trucks. Never use open flames, such as matches or lighters, for checking the gasoline level in fuel tanks. Smoking is prohibited around refueling areas.
What are some difference between an automobile and a forklift? Take a moment and read this. On a forklift, your back end is going to swing out. On a car, the front is going to swing out. On a car, you have to take corners wide. On a forklift, you come right up to it, line your fulcrum point on it, and then turn. These are used in tight areas. These aren't very good in turning in tight areas. This is your capacity plate on your gradals, on your telescopic boom handlers, on all lift trucks. You have to know your data plate. You have to know your capacity plate. It needs to be punched in correctly. It needs to have the attachment. It needs to have the weight without attachment and weight with attachments. Attachments derate the capacity of your forklift, so you need to have the correct weight here. And the data plate also needs to have the make, model, and serial number on it. Okay, this is important. You need to have it stamped correctly, and you need to understand it. You need to locate it. You need to see if it's LP, gas, diesel. You need to identify that before you get on the lift. This is not okay. Modifications are illegal. You cannot do this. And modifications meaning you can't weld extra seats on here. So on your test, when it asks you if you can modify a forklift, it's no. Only the manufacturer can modify a forklift. So on the test, if it says, can maintenance men modify a forklift? No. If it's not the manufacturer, you can't do it. You can't do it. This is not okay. You can't modify. You can't put extra propane tanks on a forklift. These are things that people have asked me and I've seen out there in the working environment as well. You can't do that. Not safe. This is also a modification. You can't drill holes in steel, and you can't make little holes in forks. They make attachments for that. And the reason why OSHA doesn't like that is because when you start tampering with steel, it puts little micro cracks in the steel, and it weakens the fork. This is not okay. This is a forklift picking up another forklift. Again, that's not okay. So when you have a forklift and a load, you always want your load pointing uphill. You want to go uphill. If there's any grade, it doesn't matter. The test is going to say like 8 or 9 degrees or to any degree slope, you want your forks uphill. And you want to back down the hill when you go down. So forks up at all times, up the hill, up the slope. It's important to know it's on the test. If you can't see, grab a spotter or drive backwards. Majority of your time in a warehouse is going to be driving backwards. Have one spotter. You don't need so many chiefs and not enough Indians. You need to have one spotter, one driver, and you need to be able to listen to that spotter. Don't listen to a truck driver who's not part of your company. Again, remember you're liable for everything. Keep it within the company. And if you can't see, drive backwards. Make sure things are attached correctly. Guys have gone in here and dumped this, and the whole thing falls over, and the forklift ends up falling over as well. Make sure these are attached correctly. Make sure you know how to use these correctly. These are dumpsters. Don't lift people up on forks. You want to lift your any kind of load you have, you want to lift with 2 forks, but don't lift people up on forks. This is if you can see this, this is a forklift lifting up a ladder with a guy on top, fixing a light. Not okay. Rollovers are caused by fast turns and carrying the load too high. You don't want to drive around crazy. You don't want to be crazy in the warehouse. You want to keep a good distance away from other forklifts. At least 3 truck lengths behind forklifts if you have to follow them. You don't want to pass people in narrow aisles if you're driving forklifts. You're not driving a race car. It's not NASCAR. You just keep your distance and be safe.
The operation of the lift truck, such as loading, lifting, traveling, parking, and shutdown, require an operator's skill, awareness, and concentration. A safe lift truck operator must know the proper procedures concerning the use of lift trucks. Handle only loads within the rated capacity of the truck. Operate lift trucks equipped with attachments as partially loaded trucks when not handling a load. Place the forks under the load as far as possible and carefully tilt the mast backward to stabilize the load. Handle only stable or safely arranged loads so they won't come loose while being moved. Always use both forks when lifting a load. Do not tilt an elevated load forward unless the load is in a deposit position over pallet racking or being stacked. Use only enough backwards tilt to stabilize the load when stacking or tiering loads. Overloading a lift truck decreases your control and the lift truck's stability and increases the possibility of a tip-over accident. The horn is a warning and safety device. Use it when approaching blind spots and corners, backing up, and when approaching people walking or standing along your path of travel. Always drive straight up and back down a ramp or inclined surface. Drive with the load pointed uphill on grades greater than 10%. Never turn a lift truck sideways on a ramp or inclined surface. Maintain a safe distance from the edge of ramps or platforms while on any elevated dock, platform, or freight car. Do not use lift trucks for opening or closing rail car doors. Be sure the dock plate or ramp is secure and cannot slip between the dock and vehicle that is to be loaded or unloaded. There should be plenty of dock plate or ramp overlap on the dock and inside the vehicle. Confirm that the brakes are set and wheel chocks are in place or dock locks are engaged to prevent movement of trucks, trailers, or railroad cars while loading or unloading. Fixed jacks may be necessary to support a semi-trailer during loading or unloading when the trailer is not coupled to a tractor. Before driving onto the flooring of trucks, trailers, or railroad cars, check for weakness of the flooring. To prevent injury and damage to product or property, do not drive lift trucks on bad floors. Observe all traffic regulations, including authorized plant speed limits. Always have a clear view of your path of travel. When traveling with a load that blocks your visibility, travel with your load trailing or the lift truck in reverse. If you need to travel with obstructed visibility, use a ground guide or spotter and be certain that they are out of harm's way. To maintain visibility and stability of the lift truck, never raise or lower the forks while traveling. Travel with the load or forks raised no higher than 6 to 10 inches off of the ground. Do not pass other trucks traveling in the same direction at intersections, blind spots, or other dangerous locations. Maintain a safe distance of approximately 3 truck lengths away from the truck ahead. Pedestrians and emergency vehicles always have the right of way. Drive at a safe speed and make smooth stops, starts, and turns. The rear wheels are the turning wheels, which cause the back end to swing out wide when turning. Ensure that personnel and objects are clear of this rear swing area when turning. Always keep the lift truck under control. Prevent the loss of steering control and increased braking distance by avoiding any slippery spots caused by oil and water. Clean up any hazards on the floor that might adversely affect the operation of lift trucks. Cross railroad tracks and speed bumps at an angle, one wheel at a time. Do not drive lift trucks up to anyone standing in front of a bench or other fixed object. Never stand under any elevated portion of a lift truck, whether loaded or empty. Always keep your hands and feet inside the designated operator compartment of the lift truck. Only the operator may ride on a lift truck unless otherwise provided for by the manufacturer. Authorized personnel may be lifted on the forks to reach their work, provided they are in an approved safety cage and wearing proper fall protection equipment attached to the safety cage. The person raising and lowering the cage must stay in the operator's compartment when another person is in the safety cage. Place orange safety cones around the entire lift truck to safeguard against other equipment striking the truck. Check for sufficient headroom and clearance under overhead installations, such as lights, pipes, and sprinkler systems. Report all accidents immediately to your supervisor or as directed. Park lift trucks away from fire aisles, access to stairways, and fire equipment. Whenever you park your lift truck or leave it unattended, lower the load or forks completely to the ground, set the parking brake, place the directional control in neutral, and turn the key switch off. Always block the wheels when parking on an inclined surface. If the lift truck is not in view or more than 25 feet away from the operator, it is considered unattended. In this case, the load or forks must be lowered completely to the ground. Following the practices shown in this video will help ensure a safe working environment. Know the design of your lift truck. Read the nameplate and know what the capacity and load center of the lift truck are. Understand the concept of the lift truck's fulcrum point and three-point suspension system. For fire protection, know the energy source designations of lift trucks. Safe battery and fuel procedures are essential for lift truck operators. Maintaining your lift truck will help ensure safe operation and prevent accidents. Inspect your lift truck daily and fill out the required checklist. Finally, know how to safely operate your lift truck. Professional operators know the safe and correct techniques of loading the lift truck, handling the load, traveling, parking, and shutting the truck down. Understanding these safety procedures is an integral part of becoming a safe, professional lift truck operator. Following these procedures helps protect the operator, co-workers, the lift truck, and the company's products and property.